I am so excited to have our guest on today. Welcome, Janine Mix. You specifically help women build generational wealth without cutting up all your credit cards and without having to skip your coffee. So I am so excited to talk about wealth with you, specifically for women. So welcome, Janine.
Thank you so much for having me. This is literally the message that's been put on my heart, and I'm super excited to be here. Thank you so much.
Now, if you're listening to the show, Janine and us have been kind of in similar worlds, and we just crossed paths at a conference. We highly believe in investing in yourself, and so does Janine. And what really caught our attention about her story is she went from over 6 figures in debt to becoming a 7-figure entrepreneur. Mm-hmm. Now she helps women do the same, but she has some really, I feel like, insightful, thoughtful wisdom on the topic of money, specifically with women, right? And Rainmakers, we serve moms. We help moms create wealth, typically through Amazon or some sort of business ownership, you know? And Janine, you're working with all types of women, moms, non-moms, all types of women. I feel like we should dive into this conversation of money, because I feel like it's kind of this finicky topic sometimes. Sometimes people are hesitant to talk about it. Sometimes they have weird stories they're telling themselves about money. And so I heard you mention this right before the show, the money story. And so I want to dive into the money story, because everyone has a money story, and the story you're telling yourself really matters. So as you've been working with women on this topic of money, what are the 2 stories you hear most frequently?
Yes. So your money story shapes everything you do, how you behave around money, how you think about money. And when I say things like, I want a lot of money, what do you think? You probably think, oh, that sounds kind of greedy and selfish. And you have all these existing things. When I say the word debt, what kind of feelings are coming up right now? Like maybe you're like, oh, I hate debt. Debt is the worst thing ever. You're not supposed to have it. I'm ashamed that I have it. So your money story shapes everything. And so where does your money story come from? Well, the 2 places that it comes from is your experience with money. So did you have a bad experience with money? Did you overspend? Did you put a bunch of money on a credit card and then you had that emotion around debt of I shouldn't have done this and now I'm kind of in a hole, right? That shapes your experience. For me, my experience was shaped by the $120,000 of student loan debt I was in. That shaped my story for years. I sat in that and I was just like, I felt guilty. I felt like, how am I going to marry someone? Someone's got to marry me with this debt. And he did. And I'm like, I had to come to the table with that. That made me feel so much shame and guilt, even though my financial advice was to go to school, get a good job, go to the best school. So I did. I went to a private university in California, and my parents didn't prepare for it, but they certainly loved telling people that I went to school there, you know? And so your money story is shaped by your experience and also who you learned about money from. So your parents, and you have to look at both. Maybe you only had one parent, maybe you didn't have any parents, maybe you came out of the foster system. Either way, it shapes everything you think about money. So what did your parents, how did they behave and talk around money? That shapes everything for us. So if you had really stingy parents and maybe they had money, but they didn't want to spend it, typically you become really frugal and you feel the same way. Or you go the opposite and you're like, I never want to feel that frugal again. I want to have the freedom and I want to buy things and not have to go to Goodwill and shop there. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but you just are shaped by your money story. So where does that come from on your paternal side and your maternal side? And then where in your life have you had experience with money? And then you really start to ask yourself, what is my money story?
Wow, that's really interesting. I remember we were reading The Psychology of Money, and it talked about how sometimes there's even events, right? So a few generations ago, the Great Depression, right? There's a major event that can affect everyone's money story, right? Well, not everyone, but for the better or for the worse, right? And then maybe our parents or a generation before us is raised by the generation went through that money story. And how does that money story still telling a story to this day, you know? And so it's really interesting when you look back on history, like these things we inherit from our parents, inherit from parents' parents, but also the things we experience ourselves, the things we step into, whether it's positive or negative. Yeah. How would you say, in your journey, you really shifted your story, because I remember reading your bio as you sold everything, you kind of were in debt, lived in the car, like you did all this stuff, but then you took some pretty extreme actions to shift things in the right direction.
Yes.
So where did that story start to shift for you? And what were some keys that you learned in that process?
Yes. Well, I remember very distinctly when you talk about events, I remember very distinctly being in my tiny closet, my studio apartment in Los Angeles. When I got out of college, I was paying $2,000 a month just towards my student loan payments, not including rent. And I was living in Los Angeles, rent, food, all of the other things that you have to pay to survive in Los Angeles, one of the most expensive cities in the country. And I remember very distinctly, I was sitting in this closet and I was on the phone with my sister, and she's trying to help me figure out cash and envelopes. And I need to have, an entertainment budget, and I need to have this and this and this. And every week we would sit down and do that. And every week it would just remind me how broke I was. Now, I was making $55,000 a year at the time. That was pretty good for my profession, and I still wasn't making it. And I just felt like, when am I ever going to get ahead? I would just lose sleep. I would cry. I would get a parking ticket that would cost me $100. I would sleep in my car so I wouldn't get another parking ticket. Like, I didn't have parking for my studio apartment because I couldn't afford it. So I'd sleep in my car. I got off late at night at like 2 or 3 in the morning. There's street sweep in Los Angeles. So you can't park on certain sides, and there's no parking in the middle of the night because everybody's home and sleeping. So I'd sleep in my car crying, being like, I can't afford another ticket. And I just remember thinking, there has to be a different way. Why? I can't be the only person that's feeling this right now. I can't be the only person who's come from this financial hole. I call it a debt hole, this financial hole. I can't be the only person. And this is going to be my life. What I'm learning about money and where I'm being sent in the church and different resources. My only way is to do this, cut out everything, have no fun, literally couldn't do anything with my friends. Like, I'd look at the budget and be like, there's no entertainment extra money here. I can't go to dinner with my friends. And I just remember feeling that and feeling like this is going to be the next 30 years of my life. And I said, no, not for me. Absolutely not. I wanted to travel the world. I wanted to see the world. I wanted to travel. Has been a huge thing for me because I grew up with no neighbors, no people. And I was like in the desert of California. I'm like, there has to be something more than Joshua trees and cactus. And so I was like, I want to travel the world. I want to do these things. And I'm supposed to work this hard for 30 years. And then after 30 years, when, I'm going to be older, I'm tired, I'm more exhausted, I'm going to be on a tour bus going to Egypt. Like, no thanks, not for me. And so I hit the reset button on my life and I moved. That was a huge part of it because I'm never going to get ahead where I was. The cost of living and everything. I just knew I had to make a total different change. So I moved, and then I realized I need to start investing. And that was a huge thing that my husband and I were on the same page. I moved from my boyfriend at the time. We weren't married. We moved to Montana. I hadn't been here. It was a place I'd never been, never seen, with a guy I just started dating, and I hadn't even told him I loved him. So I was like, I think I realized I'm actually pretty high risk taker, but I think a lot of entrepreneurs are, because we see the world differently, and we do have this innate thought that there's got to be something more, and I have the ability to change my circumstances. And you hear these inspiring stories everywhere, and you're like, if they can do it, I can do it. So I hit the reset button on my life. I moved. I never looked back, and it wasn't always easy. There were lots of highs and lows there too, but that was the biggest thing. And then I would say the next thing was I had to unlearn everything I ever knew about money. I had to rewrite my money story. I definitely held on super tight. Like, my fists were tight. And I was like, what do you mean I have to tithe to the church? I barely have money for rent. I had to learn to release so that I could receive. I had to change everything I ever learned about money, debt, using debt. I think that was the biggest thing. Is the first property we ever got into, I owned it. We weren't married yet. My husband and I owned it. And I was like, okay, well, I'm doing this. And I was like, wait a minute. Before everything happened, I'm like, I'm going to get in more debt. I'm already 120. That was my money story, was debt is wrong. Debt is bad. You shouldn't have any debt, which I don't believe any of that now. I think debt is a tool in a system. It's a tool in our system that you can leverage in tremendous ways, whether you leverage that for your business to increase your sales or productivity, whether you leverage that in real estate and have rentals. That's what we did. And one property paid off $80,000 of that debt in 3 years instead of 30. And then I was like, it works. This works. I don't have to be in this debt for 30 years. We paid that off years ago. And now we're actually in more debt than we ever were because we're in real estate, and it's leverage debt. And now we have cash flow to travel the world. This year, I've been home 56% of the year. And so I've traveled the world all year. It's been incredible. And you know what? I use credit cards so that I can travel and get flights for free. I don't pay a penny of interest. We have leverage debt with our houses and rental income. So we have cash flow. We're making money while we're visiting the country. We just went to Egypt. Like, that is what can happen if you actually learn how this tool works and how other people are using it. The schools, the banks, everybody uses this tool. So if you get smart with it and you learn to leverage it, it can change your life. And it did for me.
That's amazing. So powerful. You can hear like the passion in your voice, but because you've gone through all this and had these mindset shifts. I know you mentioned, Janine, that you realized like something had to change. You no longer wanted to be in your apartment, just like having money envelopes were constantly reminding you of where you were at. So you first made the change to move and to try and like get ahead as far as live in a place that your money could go more places for you. But then that first rental property, I'd love to come back to like that experience for you. Did you like plan kind of like start and say like, okay, if we get this rental property, it's going to pay for all these things? Or how did you like get there? Or did you like, what was that process like to get your first rental property?
It's really fun to talk about now. It was really scary then. So it kind of sounds like an infomercial, but this was our story. No money. I was 6 figures in debt, no credit. What else? No job. My husband had no job. He just lost his job. We were dating at the time, but he lost his job. I had my job, so I could be the W-2, like I had a W-2, so maybe a bank would look at me. No, banks didn't lend to us. We were not lendable. And so we had to do our first deal with no money down. We had no money. This wasn't like, oh, we're going to cut out our lattes and then we're going to snowball this debt and then we're going to save up over here. And then when we reach a certain amount of money, we're going to start investing in real estate. We said, no, that's not going to be us because we don't have any money and we know we need to start in doing this now. So how we got into that first property was we went to an event. Like, we just came from a conference, right? And you get inspired and you get to meet people. Well, we went to an event to learn how to invest in real estate. And at that event, we were like, we have to do this. It's a make or break situation. We hired a coach. We were going to get mentorship with him through our first deal, but we didn't have the money. But I did have a credit card. I had a credit card, interest-free, for a few months. And I had that credit card. It was under me again, like risk taker Janine over here. And I was like, you know what? I have this credit card. At the time, it had a $25,000 balance, but we didn't have like the money. So I sat down, I negotiated. I got this course, this mentorship for $10,000, but we didn't have it. So what that did, it wasn't about the money and it wasn't about the mentor. It was about the commitment to changing our life. And in that moment, we were like, we're going to have this bill in 30 days. So what are we going to do? We have to take that leap of faith and we have to start looking into real estate. So we found a deal. We ended up negotiating a deal with the seller, did an owner financing, no money down sort of deal. We had found a partner to do the construction on the house. I remember going to this house, you guys, it was in the middle of winter and there was like a hole in like the front of it, like literally a hole. And I was like, this is what we're buying. And then of course my money story just came back and was like, oh my gosh, you shouldn't do this. It's too risky. Everybody thought we were crazy. Our family was like, what are you guys doing? As nice, kind families do, right? When you're taking big risks, it's fine. They love us, but they don't understand us. And so I was like, okay, we're going to make this happen. Well, then the investor we got involved with got cold feet. We flipped the house and it was taking a little bit longer to sell it on the market. It was 2010 at that time. And so right after the recession and everything. And so he got cold feet and he's like, I want out. And we're like, oh my gosh. Okay. So we had to figure out. So I got a line of credit from my mom's house because my mom didn't have any money to pay off that investor. Okay. To get him out of the situation. So he was fine. He was happy, but we didn't want to lose the deal. We still had a credit card bill to pay. We still need to make money on this deal. Needless to say, we made money on the deal. We paid off that credit card. We made just enough money to kind of pay everything off, but we learned how to do it and we learned we could do it again. And that was the key. And so we still own that house today, which is incredible. It was like our first property. I should probably do some cool videos there. But yeah, our first property, we still own that today. We've had tenants paying us now for 12 years. So it's pretty awesome. And that was the house that ended up, once we refinanced and did some things, we were able to pull $80,000 and pay off my student loans. Pretty cool.
Wow. That's so cool.
That's amazing.
I feel like so many people get like held back, right? By, I don't have the money. Like we hear that so much in our world, but really it comes down to like, I don't have the knowledge about how to get the money.
Yeah.
You know, because like even you use some terms there where, some people listening are like, wait, seller financing, owner carry, like what are, like, I didn't know about half this stuff like 2 years ago either, you know? And so, but a lot of people just get limited by like my own resources, not resourcefulness. Like there's so much money out there in the world. When you know how to leverage it, you can really compress time. I mean, for you, like, you invested in some coaching, mentorship. Is that where you learned some of those like ways to structure a deal where you could do a zero money down type deal like that?
Literally, we printed everything off the internet. So we read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and it started with that. And then we printed everything we knew off of the internet of how do we learn this? I think we maybe part of that coaching, we got maybe a little course, but it wasn't when video courses were cool yet. It was literally like a workbook, you know? And it's like, this is how you do subject 2. This is how you do. And I remember... Don't tell my boss. I remember at the job I was working at that time, I didn't even have money for ink. So I printed everything off at work when she wasn't there. And I'd be reading it when there weren't any customers in the store. Then I put it away, you know, and I'm like, I just immersed myself in knowledge. Knowledge is power. But knowledge isn't everything. If you have knowledge without action, it means nothing. Most of what we learned is literally doing it. You have to do it. You have to flip a house. You can't just watch HGTV and think like one day I want to flip a house. You have to go and do it. Also, it's very unrealistic when you watch HGTV, but you know, like you have to go and do it. And so that first deal gave us the confidence we needed to be like, you know what, this works. People are doing this. This isn't a scam. People actually make money with real estate, you know, and then we got really creative because we didn't have money for years. So we had to get really creative with how we bought properties, how we sold properties, how we financed the deals. At the beginning, I remember one house, I was crying. It was 30 years worth of cigarette smoke. Okay. The walls were yellow and I'm scrubbing it and it's dripping down my arms. And I'm just like, I never want to do this again. But that's what you do. You do that when you're at a point when you actually want to change your life and your back is up against the wall. You will do anything to get out of that pain. You will find the money. I feel like the money is usually the excuse. What are your real priorities and do you really want to change your life? Because at one point, most people who have ever done anything with their life had that I don't have the money point in their life. So what are you going to do? How are you going to put that into action? And that's what we did. And we just got better. We learned more. Those first few deals, maybe we didn't make as much profit, but to us, it was like, whoa, we made 10,000 on that. That was life-changing money at the time, you know? So we were like, okay, now we're flipping deals. We just actually had a check for $900,000. And I was like, I bawled because I remember what it was like to get the first property where we only got $100 of cash flow and being like, we got $100 of passive income, $100, you know, and now to be, you know, snowballing that after 12 years, it's not a get rich quick or overnight anything, nothing worth anything, nothing sustainable is overnight. And so, we just kept building that. And I mean, it's pretty incredible to go back and think about all these stories. We're writing them down now. We're getting better at our stories, especially after that last conference.
That's you just hit the nail on the head with saying like you and your husband, or I guess maybe fiance at the time, like we're just at a breaking point and you knew something needed to change and you were actually willing to do the work and to get uncomfortable and immerse yourself in knowledge, choose a path, immerse yourself in knowledge and actually see it through. And I think that I hear, you know, you see so many things of like struggling, and I totally understand the last couple of years. I think if anything, have brought up the struggle and the desire that family is important, that your legacy and the things beyond just the money is a desire that people have, but you have to be willing to do the work and put in time. And so I love, Janine, that you persevered even when you didn't want to. And because of your perseverance and because of immersing yourself, like getting a coach, like when you didn't have money, you still got a coach and you still invested in yourself and went to a conference, even though like your bank account said you didn't have money, because you believed in something so heartily. And we have to believe and see that you can do it too. And, I love that. I would love to transition a little bit, because I know this is something, Janine, you're also passionate about talking about. And that is like women and men. And I'm learning this right now. I know this is a little bit different side note, but like I'm learning a lot of right now about like hormones and how and cycles, and how like guys' hormones and their cycles are different than women hormone and cycles. And in the same way, sometimes men and women view money differently. And there's different connections to money. So I would love for you, Janine, to dive into your expertise on this. What have you seen? Like, how do women think about money differently maybe from men?
I love this. This is one of my favorite topics. Well, first of all, I think that everybody can be different, right? And that it's also still shaped by your money stories. And when you're in a relationship, you got to be really honest with your money story and talking with that money story. I see way too many Venmo accounts where people are like transferring their spouse, their husband, like grocery money. I'm so confused about that. That's like a 1 foot out the door. What's mine is yours. When we're in a marriage, we work on this together. That means my money story. That means my debt. That means our income. We work on it together, and together is so much easier. So much easier if we work together. But men typically see risk as a challenge. Okay. They see risk as a challenge. Women tend to see it, risk as a threat. If I take this risk, it's a threat to my security and my safety and my family, right? Because we're thinking about all other people. Men see it as a challenge, and we're really excited as an opportunity. Men also see money. They tend to see money as a sort of competition. Okay. You look at some of the richest men in the world and they're like, I want to be the richest man. No, I am. Oh, I got a divorce now. It's sort of a level of status and competition for men. For women, it's very much a measurement of contribution. We don't care about winning and getting the top and be like, haha, suckers, I'm the best. Even though doesn't mean we're not competitive. Okay. It just means when we get money, we desire to contribute almost immediately. Why is it that women will give the shirt off their back and donate money even though they're not paying themselves in their business and their business is making money and they have no money in their bank account? Because we're wired for contribution. It's always been that way. We want to contribute. Why is it the first thing you ask any woman is, if you had $1 million, what would you do with it right now? And they say they give it away or they take their family on this, or, I do this for my parents. Because we're contributive, which is also a big part of my why. Like, more money in the hands of women means a better place, okay? Because we are going to give it away. We're going to donate to the places and causes that we love. We're going to change poverty. We're going to change the world. When we actually understand and become comfortable with asking for this tool, making this tool, and having no shame in our game for that, and I think there's this world in this society and this perpetuative message that money is wrong and bad and you shouldn't desire it. Said who? It doesn't come from the Bible. Jesus talks about money. The money is mentioned in the Bible over 2,600 times. If we don't think that it's an important topic to talk about, Jesus sure did. God sure did, right? Like, are you kidding me? Why would it be in the Bible that many times? And so we got to get comfortable talking about it. We have to stop tiptoeing around it and lying to ourselves that we want it or desire it, or, that it will better our life. Or I hear this all the time. I don't need money. I just want to serve. I want to serve a mission. And you know what? Every mission requires money, including Jesus's. When he went on with his disciples around the world or around his area for 3 years, 3,000 years. Look at me. I'm on fire. 3 years. Who funded that? Like, he had to pay for bills and food and housing and clothing and taxes. Guess who funded that? Do you know the answer?
Wealthy women.
Wealthy
women. Heck yeah. Women of the marketplace, entrepreneurs, right. Women who saw his mission being incredibly life-changing and funded it. So I'm like, you can't sit here and say it's not about the money or it shouldn't be about the money. Every mission requires money. Why do they ask for it at church? Why does your nonprofit ask for it when they do silent auctions in the next gala, right? Like everything requires money. It's a tool. It's a resource. That's all it is. There's a Bible verse that's always misquoted. It's like, money is the root of all evil. No, you have to understand that verse is the love of money is the root of all kinds of evil. That's very different than saying money is evil. Very, very different. It's not about loving it and worshiping it and, and this is the end all be all. But when you take your stewardship and your management of this resource and you take that to the next level, you think that's not going to multiply? Oh my gosh. And then you get to do whatever you want. You want to donate a check? I get to write a big check today to a huge organization, and I'm stoked about it. I am like, I'm probably going to cry. I'm going to film it. I'm going to cry. It's a big milestone for me. How cool is that? Because you know what? That money is going to go directly to helping get victims out of human trafficking. That is serving my mission. That mission requires some money to do that, some people in place to do that. And like, that's what it is. It's a tool. It's a resource. So there's this huge difference between what men think and what women think about money. And not that men aren't generous. It's just a different way of thinking about money. I do think that we have also so much, I feel like currently in the world, we're a little bit like victimhood a little bit too. Well, there's a gender gap and we're not getting this. We're not being paid equally. Stop being a victim and go build something. Go like, and I don't mean that mean, like, I mean that in like, you have all the tools. You have all of the gifts and talents in you right now to go make money. It's never been easier in our world to make money. There's people who make money on NFTs. I don't know what that is. There's people who make money on YouTube channel, on Instagram, TikTok, doing dances. That's incredible. It's never been easier and more accessible to make money than right now. You guys obviously teach that through what you do. It's through Amazon. It's never been that easy. So stop making excuses. I feel like the guilt that you sit in of like, it's kind of, I shouldn't want money. I shouldn't want this. And I should just, that's an excuse because you're not willing to do what it takes to go get what you want. If someone says no, look at Jamie Kerlima when she spoke on stage. How many no's did that woman get? And I'm like, if someone says no, you keep going. Trust your gut. You keep going. You wait for the person to open the door or you go build the other door. You answer the call. So I don't know.
Good.
That's what I feel like. Yeah.
You have so much we love bringing on guests that have authority in topics because authority is like when you've actually broken through something, you've actually made a way for other people. You've actually done it. Right. And once you've done it, you carry it, you know what I mean? And you really carry this, which is so cool. And I feel like you've done a lot of that work, like not only the actual work, but the inner work to really overcome those kind of weird roots that come with money sometimes, the shame, the guilt. And sometimes these are put on us by mainstream financial teachers. Sometimes they're put on us by, our bringing up. But what would you say to someone who, maybe a woman who is just thinking about this money and just feels icky still to her? She's kind of got the shame or the guilt, or like even just saying like, I want, like we had a podcast guest on, we had Eileen Weiler on the show. And she just said like so boldly, like, I just wanted to make money. Like, but the way she said it, like, it was just like, man, we got to get around more people that have that confidence around it, because she didn't have to explain it. She didn't have to tie it to, so I can give back. Like, we know that's in her heart, but she had this confidence around it. That was like, there was no guilt or weird shame kind of sprinkled around it to soften it, And so you have that as well. And so what would you say to someone who's kind of struggling with that? Like, oh, I don't know. Like, I don't know if that's for me,
I would say use this mix. I call it the mix shift. My last name is Mix. The mix shift. Okay. What is the M, the message? What is the message you're actually telling yourself? So maybe you're saying money is wrong or this one I hear a lot. If I have money, what if I'm going to be greedy? Like, what if I have a greedy heart? If I start to get money, I don't want that. First of all, greedy people don't think like that. So if you're already having those thoughts about what happens if I become greedy, you're not a greedy person. But what is the message? Okay, money is, I shouldn't want money, and, rich people are greedy. That's the message you're telling yourself. Is that true? That's the I in the mix. Is that true? Is it true that all wealthy people are horrible, greedy people? No. Is it true that money is wrong? Money has no feelings. It's immoral. It has no feelings. It's not good or bad. It's just a tool. We can't say good debt, bad debt. I hate that. You have to use leverage debt. There's leverage debt and consumer debt, but it's not good or bad. Don't give money feelings because it's just an immoral object. So is it true? No. The X is cross that out. What is the message that you'd rather be telling yourself? That, you know what, if I get more confident with this resource, I trust the person, my being, I trust that person is going to do some really cool things with it. And you know what money does? It highlights who you already are. So if you're greedy, it's going to highlight your greed. If you're compassionate and generous and like have that abundance, it's going to magnify that in you tenfold. It's just a magnifier for who you already are. So use that mix shift framework in anything. I mean, it could be anything in life, but especially as these money stories will come up because you're going to hit them multiple times. You're going to hit them the first time you have that breakthrough moment. And then you're going to go backwards and like, oh, that's, you know what? I made that money, but it's probably a freak accident and I'm never going to do it again. How many of us have felt like that? Like, I'm never going to make that kind of money again, right? Like, no. That's the message you're telling yourself is that was a freak incident. Is it true? Is it true that you just hit a huge financial milestone or something in your business and it's not possible at all for you to do that again? No, of course it's not true. So stop giving it its power. What would you rather be telling yourself? What's the next milestone I can hit? What else can I do? So you have to rewrite that all the time in everything. It's like I said, that can be applied to anything. It can be applied to relationships, your thoughts, your money story, all of it. But that's what I would say is if you really want to be open to the abundance that is out there. A lot of people think that, if I make more money, I take from someone else. That's not true. We live in a kingdom of abundance, not scarcity. And the people, not going to name him, but the people who are out there telling you there's, it's only this and be debt free and you can't do anything. You can't live your life and blah, blah, blah. That's scarcity. That's a scarcity mindset. There is an abundance. There is no scarcity or lack in the kingdom of God. So why isn't it in us? We have the kingdom in us. We have the power in us. Why is the glass half empty? No, it can be overflowing. It's just a different way of thinking about things. And if you don't believe me, look at inflation right now. The government's printing it left and right. If you don't believe that money multiplies, they just pulled money out of thin air. So is it possible for you to go create something that creates an opportunity, helps and serves other people and get some of that? Absolutely. Without it taking from someone and taking from their well-being. Yeah, that's the lie of the world. So absolutely. So I would just say using that mix shift framework is super important in rewriting your money story.
Okay. Oh man, I love this.
I love how you hit that on there. Like I've, in my past, especially as being like, early stage entrepreneurs, we were in the wedding industry for a really long time. And I remember like wanting like a designer purse, like I think for my birthday or something. And Steven bought me a designer purse and I still have it to this day. And I would even say like, we were at a place where it was a designer purse, but it was a gently used designer purse.
I got it on eBay.
Yeah.
It has someone else's initials on it. Yeah. It's like engraved with someone else's initials.
But I still, to this day, wear it with pride. But I remember
it was the first one. It was a breakthrough.
Yeah, it was a breakthrough. And I remember for months.
And it was still a scary amount at the time, too. It was like, oh my gosh,
Yeah. For months, like I didn't want to use that handbag because I was nervous and worried around what people would like think of me for wanting something specifically, like I think in like church community and it was just like this feeling. And I just like, I had to like work through that. Like, no, like it is not bad. It is not, I don't need to feel guilty that I like nicer things and quality things and, like certain things that I am more attracted to than like somebody else, like Steven doesn't care as much about like certain designer items that like I do. He just really wants a really nice, comfortable bed, which we have. But you know what I mean? I love that you hit it on like about talking about money and that it's not bad. And actually, like, so many incredible, wealthy people, like, fund amazing organizations. Like, I love that you are like getting off this interview and going to write a big check to an organization that you stand by. Like, we've been able to do the same thing, and we have goals, like huge goals of like, one day we want to be able to write X amount of money towards like a charity or whatever. Like, how cool would that be to be able to do that? And so money is a tool, and it's a powerful tool that can love and serve and change and create change for the world. So I really appreciate you, Janine, like talking about that.
It's so good. I love too, like coming back to like how women really default with money, which is contribution, you know? And we saw this live literally at the conference. Like there was like kind of an intervention going on with like a speaker and someone, and she was like, yeah, it was so good. She's like, what would you do if you, because she asked her about her goals. She said 100 million, right? And then she's like, what would you do when, you know, I get 100 million? And this woman sitting in the front stage, she's like, I'd give it away, right? And it'd be interesting if you're listening to this podcast, like think through this, like actually put a number on it. Because first of all, some of these people they're weird about the number. They don't even want to say a number because it like, even that feels greedy or shame. Like it's like weird, right? But just throw a number down there, and then to start to actually think about like what you would do with that number, right? And like you might think of a couple material things, right? Like, oh, I'd love to have another house. I'd love to get the beach house, maybe upgrade my car. Like you kind of go through those things, and there's still so much money above that. And so at that point, like there's so much contribution that's going to happen with that money, with investing that money and blessing future generations, right? With giving that money away to charities, to people that are making impact. Like it's so fun to start playing around with money with a generous heart, and just being like, when you live in that abundance, you know that you've created a system that's going to just keep producing money, like fruit in the garden. You can have a lot of fun giving it away. And I would honestly, if you are kind of having some friction around, like you listen to the show, you're having some friction around like dreaming big about money, I would just start thinking about that thing. Like, what's the thing beyond the money that the money allows you to do? You know, like we have people in our community who are, you know, like, hey, I build a house for someone in Mexico every year, and it's like, it only costs this much, right? But that's part of their family mission, is they like invest in this community in Mexico. They build a house for family like every year, right? Like, what is that thing that really fires you up to go like, yes, like money can be a tool to create impact, to create change in the world. And then like, especially for our women in the audience, right? Which I know is like 95% of you, like this can be a really big motivator, right? Really big motivator.
When you, like what you said with your bag, you wanted that bag. It was a milestone for you. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. The thing that has been programmed over and over and over and over again by a handful of people is that they have defined what financial freedom is to you. They've said it's paying for cash and everything. It's being completely debt free. It's having this much in your savings account, having this much backup money, having all these things, and then you're financially free. But you know what I say? You get to decide what financial freedom means to you. That looks entirely different to everybody. Someone's version of financial freedom is buying a Lamborghini. Good for them. Like, that's awesome. It's something that they wanted in their life. Who are we to think that they aren't giving or generous or whatever, or have all these judgments? We only have those because we're jealous. We only have those because we have our own money belief about people with money. I love that Russell said this in the conference. He's like, the entrepreneur is always vilified. The entrepreneur is always vilified in TV and movies. And it's true. Like these people are vilified. And you get to decide what financial freedom means to you. I, a long time ago, like 10 years ago, realized it didn't have to be debt free. I had like held on to that pain of my debt for so long. And I'm like, I never want to be in debt again. And I paid off that debt. But you know what? I got a lot of things from that debt. It was a student loan. I got a degree. I got 4 years of college. I learned so much. Do I use my degree? No. Would I have made that decision? No. Like I actually didn't want to go to college. And so I didn't want to go to college. My parents said, go to college, but we're not going to pay for it. Just sign here. You know, that sort of horrible financial advice. I gave up my financial power to someone else in that moment. We have to stop doing that. We have to stop giving someone else's idea of financial freedom and that power. We have to stop doing that. We have to define it for ourselves. And like you said, Stephen, like, what is it that you're trying to do this for? Because financial freedom is not that this is gonna hit some people hard because I know the pain. It's not that hard and it's not that far away. It might feel like it right now, but that is temporary. That feeling that you are feeling right now, like I could cry, is temporary. Everything is temporary. Nothing is permanent. So if you could, Ed Milet said that in this weekend, and I was like, yes. And so just know that your situation is temporary. There is a way, and that way can look entirely different than what you've learned. And it might be entirely different. If you're in the same situation and you've been trying the same thing and you still feel like my life sucks, I can't have coffee, I feel guilty for everything, try something differently. There is a million different paths to financial freedom. So don't get stuck in the trap and the lies that financial freedom only looks a certain way.
So good.
Man.
I love it, Janine. This conversation has really fired me up. I love hearing you just speak so passionately. You carry such authority in setting people free, and specifically, I think setting women and mamas free. I think moms, we sacrifice so much for our family, and it's so beautiful and it's so good. Like, there's nothing that I wouldn't do for my boys, but also like we as moms, like sometimes we feel guilty for wanting even as small as like the extra coffee or like the luxury item or whatever it is, maybe you don't want to drive a minivan anymore. Maybe you want to drive the Mercedes. Like, I don't know, but I love it. And I just feel that you're just like setting women free, that like money is not bad, and desiring wealth for your family is not bad. So thank you so much, Janine, for being on the show. If our listeners want to hear more about you, what you're doing, I'm sure you're dropping some gold all the time. Where can our listeners follow you?
Yes, go hit me up on Instagram at Janine Mix. Like, I'm a real person. Come tell me if something resonated with you. I will voice message you back, video message you back. I'm a real person. I want to connect with people. I actually hate social media, but if you're you and you're me and we're connecting and we're real, like that's the thing that makes me stay on. You can also go and tune in to my own podcast, Permission to Prosper. Would love to have you just, get more inspiration and thoughts around how you want to blaze the trail for you in generations to come.
Awesome.
Well, until next time, this has been the Rainmaker Family Show. We'll see you guys on the next episode.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Rainmaker Family Show. Hey, if you are not a part of our Rainmaker Mastermind, we have a new opportunity for you to book a one-on-one strategy call with one of our Rainmaker coaches.
If you want to get a call with them, see if it's a good fit for you to work with us to build a business that allows you to have time freedom and financial freedom, you can get that call at makeitrainmama.com/podcast. That's makeitrainmama, MOMMA.com/podcast.